Now to get started with rows, we need to get a little blob. I was going to suggest what you do is just join in while I'm doing this. You just get your fabric paint and you just squirt a sort of squidgen of fabric paint into the corner of your printing tray there. And when you've done that, you have your sponge and you get your block and you get a little bit of fabric paint onto your sponge, and then you just literally dab your paint all over. Can I just show you one layer of paint like that? That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to literally cover the entire wooden block with paint, so there's no gaps. Also, you don't want great splodges, and that's why a sponge is a very good idea for this. And because we're going to be doing rows, I like to generally start in the middle and push the block down with my hands, just like this. Can you see? Just go to the middle, push your hands down, and then when you peel the block off, you end up with a very clear, crisp image, which I think really is just lovely. And that's the first step of your fabric design. Now, what we're going to do, obviously, it is very, very simple. Where do you think the next block is going to go, Rebecca?
In the corners?
No, because we're doing rows. Where do you think, Lucy?
There.
Right next to it. Now, so can you get the block and go to the left-hand side of your image, your motif, touching, just touching, and push it down. Rebecca, you probably need a little bit more fabric paint than you've had before, so try again and go on top of the same area again. And when you pull the block off, again, you get a very nice crisp image. Now, obviously, you can just keep on going like this. We're going to do a very straight row of one motif, because actually motifs, it's just one image, and a pattern is created by doing the same motif in a variety of arrangements. So you can see we've got the block and the sponge and a nice even layer of paint. And again, we're going to lay the block right next to it, push it down firmly just like that for a couple of seconds, take it off, and as you can see, we're beginning to build up a very nice row of images. And so you carry on doing that until you finish the whole row. Now, do you notice how nice the background is? Because we've got that spongy background. It's giving a nice clear image, isn't it? Now we've created one row, I'm going to show you how to do the second row. Again, you charge up your sponge with the paint, you dab it onto your block, and the very important thing about this, girls, if you just watch for one moment, is keep the block exactly in the same position underneath, okay? You want to make sure it's perfectly aligned. So if you can see there, I've got the block positioned exactly under the image above it. We'll peel that off, and if you just carry on doing the same block printing in nice, neat, tidy rows, and exactly underneath, you will find that you've created a lovely pattern. Now, I'm going to leave you to carry on to fill up, if you can fill up your fabric with your block printing, and I'm going to show you what this is, an example of rows, but now there's something different about these rows. What do you notice that's actually different about these rows to the ones you've just done? Rebecca? Well, Lucy? Fausia?
They're not touching
Exactly,
each other, you've got a gap in between.
There's a gap in between, you see, because I've just shown you how to do block printing with a continuous row. Now, obviously, there's variations of a row. These are rows with gaps in. And then we have another example of, this is a completed piece of fabric with rows with gaps in. Now you can leave those rows empty if you wish, or you can continue doing another design on that. So I'm just going to show you what, if you just carry on doing your block printing, I'm just going to talk you through some examples of continuous rows. This is a continuous row with a little gap. And then we could squash them up so that what you're doing right now is all the motifs are touching, aren't they? Now with this example here, the motifs were touching. And on our next example, we have motifs that are actually vertical rather than horizontal. So rows can be vertical or horizontal. They can go up or they can go down. But the most important thing is to remember to keep your block exactly underneath the other one, okay? Because that's the sort of true definition of rows. Now, if you don't want the rows to touch, you can, of course, create a checkerboard effect where you leave one gap empty. So you leave a space and you block. What I normally do is put a block down with no ink on it, so no paint on it, so that in fact that helps me create a nice even geometric design. How are you getting on, girls? Are you doing all right there? Yeah. Yes, these are coming on beautifully. Rebecca, don't push so hard. Just push your hand like that. Just push it down and then that will be enough. Excellent, that's lovely. Now, while you're just finishing off your piece of fabric, I'd like to explain the difference between a pattern and a motif. A motif is one single image. So you get a block and you will create one single picture like this that actually can stand alone by itself. And actually, it's when you repeat these motifs that you actually get a pattern. So for instance, on this tea cozy, you can see that we've got a motif printed, the single motif, that's one block, believe it or not, one block printed in the middle of the tea cozy. But what we've done for the lining is we've actually created it in rows that then creates a pattern in itself. So really a pattern is a series of repeated motifs. Let's see how you're getting on. Lucy, tell me how you're getting on.
Quite good.
What problems have you had?
Well, I didn't join them together.
Okay, well have you ever done this before?
No.
No, so this is your very, very first time of block printing.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to make mistakes all along the line. In fact, quite often, mistakes can lead you to new discoveries, so it's not a problem at all. And Rebecca, how are you getting on?
Okay,
You're doing very, very well. Now, I can see you've got a nice creation there as well, Faz. Are you comfortable?
Yes, yes, thank you. It's quite important to keep your block straight, otherwise your whole design goes slightly skewed.
Which you might want a skew design, but to start with, I think we'll follow the rules of theory, and then obviously rules are to be broken at a later date. So excellent, well done. Now, the other thing with these blocks, sometimes you need to remember which way the block is held, because with these geometric blocks, they're all the same, so it doesn't actually matter. But later on, when we do some other blocks, we will have to consider the orientation, which way the block is held. And now we've learned how to create variations of rows, let's move on to brick pattern.